What if the scariest spot in your life is exactly where you're meant to be? What if faith and fear are just two different responses to that command that we as believers have to walk by faith, not by sight? I was taught that the just shall live by faith, and that's in Romans 1:17. But I was also taught exactly what to believe about God in the Bible and exactly how to live it. No faith was required. Okay, that's not faith. That's dogma. That is living on the certainty of what others say about Scripture. Faith is not rigid rules. It is trusting. This is my definition of faith. Trusting in the goodness of God ahead of time. I'm reminding of a time when my dad was injured at work and he was the sole income provider for our family. There were 6 of us kids at the time. And obviously, he was so worried. I, as the oldest daughter, was so worried. My mom was not worried. She told me later, she goes, when things like that happen, I get excited because I can't wait to see how God shows up. And I'll tell you just one little experience of how God showed up in that time. So my mom and dad were in the back bedroom, probably talking about how to pay the bills. And there was a knock on our door. And opened up the door, and it was a man that I knew very well. He was a friend of my dad's. Not a man that we went to church with, but he had tons of food that was about to expire from his father's grocery store. We are talking about things that we would have never bought. Bakery goods, a whole fancy cake. And it was incredible, like to go from one moment from what are we going to eat? Crackers and cheese probably for lunch to, oh my goodness, we can have whatever we want. My mom anticipated that moment happening. And my dad and I missed out on the anticipation, even though the event was coming. I think faith is that anticipation, that realization that the goodness of God is going to always show up in His time. And we can anticipate it, or we can fear until we see it. Walk by faith, not by sight. If I am dependent upon my sight, then I will have plenty of opportunity to fear instead of anticipating the faith, enjoying it. Why do I say that entrepreneurship is just about the greatest test of faith? Well, because you are always dealing with the unknown. But the truth is, there is no true job security. Entrepreneurship is just an honest interface with reality, that there truly is no job security. Entrepreneurship is you creating your own job, creating your own work, your own value in the world that benefits others, and they exchange their money for your value. This is why I find it fascinating that God led me and my husband from what we thought was a walk of faith by being missionaries to the greater walk of faith in our lives, which was entrepreneurship. Because when we were living as missionaries, we were doing the socially approved thing by the church. We got so much praise for it, and we tried not to let it go to our heads. And then we raised our support, and churches were very generous with supporting us, and our time on the field was never marked by any financial insecurity. And then God called us off the field and didn't tell us exactly what to do next. And all of a sudden, we were plunged into this uncertainty. Now, God had not changed. His command is still to walk by faith, not by sight. I thought I knew what the future was going to look like for the next 20 years, and I was completely wrong. But the truths and the principles of His Bible still stand true. And so we embarked on the entrepreneurship life. I learned I had to practice the practicalities of my faith to such a greater extent, and without the constant verbal approval of other Christians that I had received as a missionary. So, fast forward, we've been entrepreneurs for 10 or 15 years. My husband was one first, and then I joined him in the fun, exciting life of entrepreneurship. That became really fun when we decided we were ready to buy a house here in Arkansas, because banks do not find it easy to loan money to entrepreneurs. They much prefer the security of, here's a W-2. We can prove that our income is coming from this big corporation. We thought we'd have to wait for a couple of years for our tax returns to do it. And then we decided to just look and see. Walk by faith, not by sight. See if there's another option. And so I called up somebody, and he mentioned something about bank statement loans. And so we started on that process. And all of a sudden, there was a home that came up that was going to be perfect for our needs. And so we started walking by faith and working with one of these brokers. And y'all, it was intense for like maybe 80 days. We did not know if we were going to close on the house or not until 4 days before our closing. It was incredible. And there was a point when my husband said to me about 2 or 3 weeks before we closed, he goes, "It looks like the process is going a lot smoother." And I laughed at him. And I said, "No, it's not. It is still as difficult as it has been. There has been no change. The only change has been that I've stopped complaining as much about it." So, long story short, we closed on the house. This is why you're seeing me sitting in a new office that doesn't have newly painted walls yet. Haven't had time yet. We just got in. But I wanted to share with you how I went from walking by faith and describing it as feeling like I am on the knife's edge to I'm learning to dance on the edge of faith. Because the Bible gives us the promise, the just shall live by faith. And so my first mistake was thinking that the just shall live by faith means that the just shall live by the rules of the Bible, that there are rules and that we need to abide by them. So my first point that I was making is entrepreneurship is such a great exercise in increasing our faith, because there is so much uncertainty to do the exercising of our faith. There is so much fertile ground, so much uncertainty for us to stand on that edge between the known and the unknown. Not many people have gone on ahead of you and have lived an example of exactly what this is going to look like. You are going to have to figure it out on your own. You're going to have to figure out what it looks like for you as the creative being of God to live out what He has put in your heart in a creative way, working with other people in faith, exchanging value for money, services for money, products for money. So much learning there. No guaranteed paychecks at the start, maybe. And that's when you find out, oh, my faith has been in a guaranteed paycheck, not actually in God or His principles of abundance in the world, or the goodness in the way that He has managed things, or even in my ability to do fruitful works that bear good fruit. No. My faith was in a corporation that was paying me a paycheck. So the just shall live by faith. But then there is the just shall live by faith. And I wasn't living by faith because life in Jesus looks like life more abundantly. It doesn't look like it when we describe, I feel like I've been walking on the knife's edge of faith. It looks like the ability to dance, to relax, to, as my mom did, anticipate the goodness of God ahead of time. So that's living by faith. Life more abundantly, not the survive, but the thrive. The just shall live by faith. Now, how do we get from there, from starting out in the faith and getting to the point that we can dance in the uncertainty ahead of time, walk by faith, not by sight, not needing to see the results in order to trust that they're coming? And this is the beauty of Scripture, because there's another verse that promises us, knowing this, that the trying of your faith worketh patience. And let patience have her perfect work, that you may be perfect and entire, wanting nothing. Patience. Patience fills the gap, because the more patience we have, the more we can relax. So that 80 days of unknowingness, I spent about 65 of them getting repetition after repetition after repetition in the trying of my faith. And finally, it worked some patience in my life, and I was able to enjoy, to a greater extent, the last 2 weeks. And I remember when it happened. I was sitting at dinner. My husband and I had gone out for a date, and it's like, I know this for a certainty. No matter what happens, whether we get the house or not, I will be okay. I will still believe in the goodness of God. I know ahead of time that I will believe in the goodness of God. And that allowed me to relax. The just shall live by faith, and they are going to enjoy. We have the opportunity to enjoy it like it is a grand adventure, or to sigh and survive it. For too many years, I believe that the sighing and surviving it was the way to go. And now I'm just so not content with that. I want the excitement of seeing God do great things and me being a part of it. And I know that if you have listened to this video for this long, this is exactly what you want too. So let me just say a few things in closing. 3 things. Number 1, no matter what God has called you to do, there is an aspect of faith that is beckoning to you. Find it. Go towards it. It might feel fearful at first until your faith muscle is strengthened. Number 2, see the trials and look for the patience they're building, okay? The sooner we get to the patience, the sooner it just doesn't feel like so much of a trial. And my experience will drastically change depending on which perspective I adopt, moment by moment, minute by minute, day by day. And the practice of switching between those two will build the muscle that we can get here sooner and stay here longer on the anticipatory faith side. And then number 3, when it says the just shall live by faith, stop believing that it means, yes, that means that I will survive this. No. Or there's the possibility to thrive it. Go look for where the dance can happen. Here's the question that I asked a client of mine recently as she was going through something similar. What would make this experience beautiful? Instead of saying, how do we get through this? What would make this beautiful? We will change our experience by asking better questions. And we will expand our perspective by asking better questions. We can see the reality for what it is, or we can see the reality for the potential it holds. Faith is always going to call us to see the reality for the potential it holds. But one more thing, one more promise that we have to always remind ourselves, not as the first answer, but as the very final answer to our wavering faith. Our God is more powerful than this. And if He wants, He can deliver us out of this fiery furnace. But if not, we still won't bow. In the believer's life, the worst that can happen is the beginning of the best that can happen. So, death is no longer the threat. Do you understand that is the fear that the whole world has, greater than anything else? The fear of death. We need to see our life as we are beginning our eternity now. We are living our abundant life now. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Earth is the reflection of the glory of God. Let us start living kingdom principles and heavenly principles down here on earth as they are meant to live in heaven. But if, worst case scenario, the worst case scenario is our best case scenario. Walk by faith. It's so exciting. Tell me in the comments below, what's your opportunity to walk by faith? What are you facing? I would love to pray with you and for you through your walk of faith. I can't wait to hear. If this has helped you, or if you know that it could help somebody else, I invite you to share it. Let's get the message out that the just shall live by faith, and it's exciting. All right, I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.